Hello and welcome to the only podcast that got kicked out of our volcano walking tour because we would not stop calling it Musta Close. I'm Luke.
I'm Max.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought.
That joke should not bring me nearly as much enjoyment as it did.
It's a real
Thank
thinker, you know? It's like a hot sauce. It hits you, and then it simmers, and it gets better as it goes.
I just think about it like if you're actually doing that, like you're in Hawaii and you're like, oh, look at this. You just keep calling it Moose to Close, and everyone's like, okay, guy, we get it. You can stop doing that now.
Hello and welcome back. We just watched episode 3 of Skeleton Crew, titled Very Interesting as an Astrogation Problem, and I, for one, loved it. Max, Matt, what'd you think?
Oh,
Same.
10 out of 10, obviously.
Yeah,
Yes.
The show's is super great.
Another easy call for 10 out of 10. It's just fun to watch. Like, it's a 10 out of 10 in a different way than a lot of other Star Wars. Like, it's not dumping massive lore things like the Acolyte or characters we wanted to see. I mean, I talked about this last week. It's its own thing. It's very distinct from other Star Wars in a completely and separate, great way. And that's just so exciting.
Yeah.
I 1000% agree.
And right now, the pacing of it, too, seems really good because I was kind of going into it with a little bit lower expectations because I thought, okay, we got past the episode 1 and 2, like, intro. Like, we're jumping into the action. Everything is new. I kind of thought episode 3 was going to slow down a little bit. Maybe we don't get as much information. It was just going to be, a little bit more adventure kind of tying into episode 4, and we'll find out more information along the way. I was very surprised with how much substance we actually got from this as far as, background, and they were kind of starting to give us more information as to the questions that we had in the first 2 episodes. I thought that was going to be like a season-long question, and they're just kind of going right into it, and I was very surprised by that.
Which is fun to see. It's not dragging it out. I feel like consistently it feels like a story that has been broken up into 8 sections that is answering and giving you questions, but also it's very satisfying to look at. Again, I hate comparing it to The Acolyte, because like you said,
I hate it when you compare it to the Acolyte.
I know, but like when you do, it's just like there's flaws. Like the entire time we enjoyed it, every episode we enjoyed the Acolyte, but then at the end of it, you feel it's empty, right? It is a bag of chips where you kind of
feel it's empty. Yes,
there's moments of glory, and I will admit that, right? But at the end of it, I'm like, nothing came together. Why do we get Plagueis 13 minutes in? Like that stuff does Plagueis my mind still. But I think with the Acolyte, sorry, go on.
I think what Matt's trying to say is that with the show The Acolyte, it was marketed to be a mystery. And so obviously every single thing that was brought up, we kind of kept hanging on to like, oh, I wonder what this means. I wonder what that means. And some of it was like, well, that's not really the mystery. Like, let's get beyond that part. Whereas this one, I feel like they did raise things that kind of caused questions in the audience, but those were intentionally raised. Whereas I feel like because we knew that The Acolyte was a mystery, we were kind of holding on to everything. And a lot of it wasn't really the mystery that they were going to ever answer. Whereas this was much more satisfying because we kind of had some of these theories and speculations in our last podcast episode. And clearly we were asking all the right questions because these are exactly the things that they're getting into in episode 3.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move past that entirely. I have no response.
Though I like The Acolyte more than most people, but not as much as you, this is written like a normal show. This is written like this actually has structure.
God, damn, Matt, lay off The Acolyte. It is structured like a show. You just didn't like a few of the episodes and moments.
No, it's not structured like a show. It gives you things that you'd never get answered. It's a fine show.
Yeah, it had a season 2 set up. Fucking start a fire in your house over it. Every single show that has come out in the last 20 years has teased a season 2.
False. Absolutely false. I don't even hang on to it because of you, Luke. I would have moved past this like a motherfucker.
I don't even want to talk about Skeleton Crew anymore. All right, so it starts out with the parents on Aten, and it is sort of confirming a lot of the stuff that we were theorizing, that the parents don't know a lot of what the mystery around Aten is, and it's the government bureaucratic kind of stuff that is above them, even above Fern's mom. I was a little surprised with that. She dropped that one line that she was setting up a meeting with the grand supervisor or something. I forget what the head person was called, but it was something along those lines. And I kind of thought that she was that person. So now we know that there's someone above her. I wonder if that's someone that we're going to be meeting soon, if not next episode. I don't know.
It almost feels like a false sense of power or something for her. Like, it's like, oh, this person is presented like she thinks she's really important, but clearly she doesn't have clearance for other things. She's clearly not above all else. Like, she herself could be, in this weird culty thing and not really know it. She drinks.
Well, I think they're all in the weird culty thing and don't really know it because it's been going on for generations. That was confirmed to an extent. This
but
episode.
Is she enforcing it?
Old, but we don't know how old. Yeah, but is she? So that would mean like that she's in the know, or not, or if she just.
I know. I don't know. She's in the know more than the others, but maybe not in the know as the most.
I don't think so though, because then they later had that dialogue specifically about what their parents did, and two of them just said like, "Oh, my parents an analyst," and they said, "Oh, mine's an analyst too." And they specifically said, "What do they analyze? Like they don't even know what it is they're doing." I wonder if the parents fully know what it is they're doing. I don't think the parents do know. I think they're definitely in the dark.
It's something with money, which is intriguing enough, but yeah, that could mean anything.
So many analysts don't know what they analyze. I don't know what any analysts do. There's so many. I feel like,
right? I know.
How is that a job?
I'm like, oh, okay, you're an analyst.
What does that mean?
And then we move on back to our A story. The kids and Jod escape from the pirate base. That was an exciting sequence. I like the dynamic between Jod and the kids. That's a lot of fun. There was that scene. I don't even know if you want to call it a scene, a transition shot of those pirates huffing red oxygen mask looking things. That intrigued me. What are they huffing? Is it a drug? Is that what spice is? I don't know. That scene jumped out at me.
It's definitely a drug.
A lot of different ways to take spice. You don't huff anything good. It's definitely seedy one way or another.
Yeah. You ever huff anything? It's
like Saw Gerrera huffing his oxygen mask isn't seedy.
Oh, okay. I guess that's
he just
fair.
needed some oxygen.
I did not get the impression that they were on oxygen. I thought they were definitely doing something.
Do you think spice is called something different depending on the way you take it? Like crack is? It's crack. You smoke it. It's cocaine if you snort it.
I assume it goes by many names.
I like that theory, but
I'm trying to think of examples, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Han or Han, depending on who says it.
Then we get on to the sequence with Jod rescuing SM-33, which was fun. We got to see a B-1 battle droid, one of my favorite droids of all time.
That was super cool. It's so cohesion is so cool to just even those callbacks like very small. Like I don't know. I just feels like I feel like the show's taking weird risks where I'm like, oh, like that is so. When's the last time we saw a B-1 droid?
I don't think that's a risk. I think that's just a fun cameo. I don't think it was.
Yeah, now I'm thinking of when we saw it. Was there one in The Mandalorian when we saw the B-2 battle droid? Yeah, there was all kinds of battle droids on that planet, weren't there? Were they all B-2 battle droids? No, I can't remember. I recently rewatched season 3 of The Mando also.
Yeah,
I can't Skeleton Crew's so cool where it's taking... It's accepting the prequels and stuff unlike what The Acolyte would never do. I'm just kidding. I just want to ruffle your feathers there.
The Jod and Smee dynamic is very fun. I like that.
What's going on there?
Smee
that's
doubles back racism. And says "I" for a second time. It's like, is that quirky? Is this droid malfunctioning? Like, is that just a pirate code kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit of all the above, and I think that's what makes it so intriguing. Kind of keeps you on your toes. It's a little uneasy, kind of sassy, friendly. It likes the kids.
I also like they're like, don't forget his eye rat or whatever.
The mouse.
I know. I had forgotten the eye rat, and then we saw it again, and that's how Jod knew which one was SM-33. Right. And then later, Neil was feeding the eye rat. I'm making my call that the eye rat is going to play a major role plot-wise at some point in the end. He's going to like hit a button or something and save a bunch of people.
That would be
great. I hope it does. Also, I like that. I also like that you called him Smee, because no one in the show has called him Smee yet, but I assume that they will. I don't know.
Force for Thought original Smee.
It should. If the fandom starts calling him Smee, I'm taking credit for it.
That was definitely caught by everyone on the internet the night of the first premiere as well.
Excellent. Good. We're on the same page.
Smee's action figure needs to come with the rat though as well. I feel like that's a great
that'd be cool. I think it might. They package it with accessories pretty often. That'd be a fun accessory. Although, I don't know. I know they've released some Skeleton Crew figures, because I know Captain Brutus is out there, and that's a big want for me, because he is so cool. They mentioned him in this episode before we saw him, and I was like, oh yeah, Captain Brutus, yeah, yada yada, he has control of the pirates. And then we saw him again, and I was like, oh yeah, Captain Brutus, cool. Now we're talking.
2 guns, Luke, your favorite. And
he sounds cool.
He sounds cool, he looks cool.
I think he has like
guns.
6 strapped to him.
He's got, maybe he's got 2 extra arms, like Who Gang or something. Just hiding away.
So the kids discuss at Atten, and they're starting to like entertain the idea that it might actually have this great treasure, and they have that moment where they say like, "Oh, our parents are analysts," which caught me grammatically. Did you guys notice that when I forget who said what? Someone said, "What does your mom do?" And then they said, "She's an analyst," and they said, "Mine are analysts too," and then mine too. Like grammatically, if we're to like read that, it implies all of them have just moms and no dads. I'm not certain that that's what it means, but it might be.
I did not catch that. I don't know. I think that's overthinking it. I understood what they meant.
They didn't say, what does your parent do? They said, what does your mom do? And then they talked, and then they said after that, mine are both analysts.
Because this was the first time that we saw KB's parents, who are presumably 2 moms.
Yeah.
And then,
oh, were they?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there were 2 women. Maybe they weren't her moms. Okay. Maybe it was her sister, so it was her mom and her aunt or something. But
this raises.
I took it to mean that those were both her parents.
This also has a lot of questions, because that one was Asian, one was white. So it's like,
so what?
That's just interesting.
Are you opposed to interracial marriage, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, interracial marriage has been pretty established in our universe. I like to think that the Star Wars universe is chill with it.
KB just looks mixed as well, so I'm just wondering the implications there, that's all.
Oh. For what the in-universe
Wow, I realized
is for
now the
in
way
vitro or something.
Yeah, that's where I was going now, but I realize now, in theory, people are going to be hanging on their edge of the seats thinking, wow, this might get real bad real quick.
Interesting. You're able to get right past the same-sex marriage and go straight into interracial marriage is your problem.
Yep.
Also in that scene, they mentioned the great work. Again, they've mentioned that several times before. Mm-hmm. I'm not certain that that's a reference to the High Republic, but that is a thing in the High Republic, the great works of the Republic, and the greatest of which is Starlight Beacon, and that's like the impetus of the entire first and third, to an extent, phase, which at Atten may very well be one of the great works of the High Republic. That would match up timeline-wise, more or less, with being, before the Galactic Republic of the prequels, so to speak, before Alderaan at least got blown up, because we got dated at least to pre-Galactic Civil War. Probably pre-Clone Wars, because they didn't know about any war, and the Clone Wars was a notable galactic war. So
that's a good call.
Atten has been secluded, or at least sheltered from the galaxy for all right, so this is 9 ABY. So we're thinking like at least 30 years, at least. Probably more like hundreds or maybe thousands. Mm-hmm. But we're at least back about 30 years. KB is getting cooler. She was my least favorite from episodes 1 and 2. She had a lot more to do this time.
Yeah, she's the skeptic of the crew.
She's the Bodhi of the group.
What was it that her moms said at the beginning? Like, we lost KB's heart monitor or something? Like, they have a life monitor on her? I can't tell if that's cool or creepily controlling. Like, if she needs it, she needs it, and good for you for having it, but also maybe she doesn't need it, and it's kind of like a way to track her, and that's not that chill. But also she does, like, borderline illegal stuff with Fern, so it's probably not that.
Also, why does she have the visor, though? Is that a medical thing? Is that, is that equivalent to glasses? We don't really know what the use is, so there could definitely be something. There could be something. What if she is, like, half, droid? I don't know. Like, what if there's some sort of droid element that we aren't? Oh, man, what if she ends up getting, like, shot or something and you end up finding she's actually half droid or something? So I don't know how that would work. Ooh,
maybe the parents are going to have to band together to find their kids, and they're kind of putting the seeds in place for their kind of storyline later on. Maybe the KB's parents aren't going to like Fern's parents because their kids always play together, and KB always gets in trouble because of Fern. So KB's parents thinks that Fern is a bad apple or whatever. I don't know. It could be interesting.
Yeah, I like all that. The At-Atten's plot line is reminding me a lot of the plot line to the show Silo, which I recently started watching last week after I watched Skeleton Crew, and so I kept comparing it to that. But it's another dystopian setting, and it's like the government is hiding information from the people for control purposes, and now I'm just like, all right, let's get on with it. I get the setup. I'm excited to see what the actual what exactly is going on.
That's a good analogy. When you were talking about the great work, if it's one of the great works from the High Republic, presumably it's something that they built. So could At-Aten be some sort of artificial planet that they specifically saved as the galaxy's last refuge if all else was wiped out or something?
Or is it the, what's it called?
Which is pretty much just what Silo is, from my understanding.
Right. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Did they build a barrier? I mean, is that what they... I mean,
it doesn't even have to be an artificial planet. They could have just built the barrier and then hid the planet somehow.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely at least built the barrier. I'm wondering if it's more than just that, though. I mean, they're doing something on the planet that we don't know what. And the way that she said, I demand...
the other planets? Sorry.
Oh, that could be interesting, because they did say that there was 9 planets, and this was the only one that wasn't destroyed.
Yeah, and I also like that setup in the fact, not necessarily that they got destroyed, but I like the idea that they have these other planets that are going to be able to be explored. This feels to me like a setup that is like no one's going to think about it for 20 years, and then a Rogue One type is going to come out where you have all these other planets, depending on what happens. But yeah, I mean, the fact that only one survived, is it something where they, again, created like a Twilight Zone type thing where it's a false sense of danger by blowing up the other planets, and so they all kind of silo themselves within At-Aten because, kind of wrongfully under the guise that they are also going to die. So then they all seclude themselves within and kind of all rule under, just say one leader or something. And it's like weird self-control or weird political control under the fake guise.
I think we'll find out. I think because like Luke said earlier, I forget what exactly she said, but she basically, one of the moms demanded a sit down with the head administrator or whoever it was on the planet. The understanding that I got from it was that this isn't someone that they've ever met before, and I feel like there was like a little bit of resistance with that, so I kind of get the feeling that maybe that's the person who knows all of this information, and they are eventually going to meet this person, and all that's going to come to light, but maybe it's also not really anyone. Maybe it's also kind of like a Wizard of Oz type thing, where it's just a man behind a curtain. Who knows?
That's a great call.
It could be that. I like your theory, Matt, that maybe At-Aten destroyed the other planets, or maybe the other planets were being destroyed, and then At-Aten threw the cloak of invisibility around itself to save itself from the same fate that was happening to the other 9. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
This is why I really genuinely like this podcast, though, because last week, if I watched Skeleton Crew by myself and like we didn't have a group chat or something, or maybe even if we did, I don't know if I would have caught on that strongly to the weird dystopian future. I would have been like, I love Goonies and E.T., so I'm going to enjoy this scenery. And then episode 3, they kind of explain it to you a bit more that it's a hidden planet. So I don't know. I just really enjoy this podcast and talking with you guys, because that's like, again, going through these theories and stuff. I feel like Max, you said we were like onto something last week, and I feel like we could be onto something this week as well.
Yeah, I enjoy this podcast at times as well.
They do such a good job, too, of addressing these things very subtly in the show, because at first when the parents were meeting, they talked about notifying the Republic, and at the time I even said to you guys, I was like, oh, see, they're familiar with the outside galaxy. She just mentioned the New Republic, and Luke caught it. You were like, I don't think she did say New Republic. I think she just said Republic. And then a little bit later, Wim was talking, and he mentioned the Jedi and how the Jedi are protectors of the galaxy, and that was when I was like, oh, well, that's not true anymore. This kid's definitely going on old information, and then they kind of like brought it home again. So it's little things like that I'm really appreciating. It's keeping me on my toes.
Yeah.
That I didn't catch that part, but yeah, you're right. By and large, Jedi are not keepers of peace and justice in the galaxy at this point in the timeline. But like, depending on who you ask, they might still think they are. Like Luke Skywalker is raising his Jedi temple, and he is a legend out in the galaxy. Like, it's possible that, depending on who you talk to, that there is still that legend around. But I think you're right. I think, yeah, that is definitely an implication that he is familiar with a galaxy centuries old. Then we get the shot of the kids and Jod walking in front of that big moon. As much as it bothers me to admit, that made me think of that show that Matt made us watch, or the movie that Matt made us watch that we hated.
Rebel Moon?
What? Yeah, Rebel Moon.
No, it should
remind you like Rebel Moon. It was good.
No, it reminds you of E.T. That's the point. It's supposed to remind you of E.T. when he's going over the moon, Luke.
Never seen that movie.
The famous
That's funny
shot.
that is a much more like direct homage to what I'm sure they were absolutely doing, but unfortunately, because I'm more into modern sci-fi than 80s adventure, I also thought Rebel Moon when I saw it.
Big
sick
mistake.
Rebel Moon there reference there.
This is exactly.
Oh,
what
I know what you're
for.
talking about. I think you're right. To be clear, I think you're 100% right on that.
And then we meet Kim with the big telescope stuff. So, Matt, I know you don't like to watch shows with subtitles on. Is that still true?
Yeah, I don't. I did towards the end of this because I was watching it with my son and he was starting to gab away.
Okay, well, if you didn't see, and you thought Kim is not a very space Star Warsy sounding name, it is spelled KHY''MMMM.
I did see
wild.
that. Insane. Can you imagine like pitching that character and being like, wait, this is how it's spelled, and then it's okay.
I know, like someone just says, all right, her name is Kim, and then everyone around the table is like, but.
Come on, Star Wars it up.
So Kim is cool, owl cat looking creature design.
Yes.
New in the Star Wars lore as far as I'm aware. I've never seen that alien before, and from what little research I did after watching it just now, I do believe that that's a unique alien design, and I love it. She flies. Yeah. How many aliens do we have that fly besides Watto, who flies like a bum? Like she has full on wings and like soars and stuff. It was badass. She's an owl.
Watto and Geonosians were the only two that I could think of.
Geonosians, yeah. But they both have like the little effect instead of the effect. And so
she's more of a glider.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yes. This whole show, I really, it's same thing with Brutus. It reminds me of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I don't know if I said this last week, but like very 90s.
You did not. I have not thought about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in some time.
Like it's like not necessarily in the cheesiness aspect, but it just there's like this level of disbelief where I'm like, yes, this could exist in this world easily. Which is, I guess, just Star Wars, but it's just, again, it's a kid's version of it, I guess, more kid version of it. And so, like Kim and Brutus, just I feel like all cohesively make sense within the story. And it's, I think, again, you have like an owl and a werewolf, like that feels like something from like Beetleborgs or like Mighty Morphin. Which I don't know if you guys ever watched Beetleborgs, but it is what was to me the more superior version of Mighty Morphin. I say that because it had the Universal horror movie monsters. For some reason, also with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
If I had to offer any piece of feedback on this show so far, I would say that they shouldn't have strung us along so long with who this friend was, because I feel like they do that a lot in Star Wars. Like we get a lot of cameos like all the time. So when you say like, oh, we're gonna go see an old friend, immediately you're like, oh, I wonder who it's gonna be. And then like they made a big deal about like hiding her identity, and then the subtitles just said woman. It didn't say their name or anything. Yeah. And it's like it's a new character. Like you could have just said like, oh, we're gonna go meet my friend Kim real quick or something. I don't know. I feel like there's a way to just rip that Band-Aid off, because I was probably not paying as close attention to the show as I should have for about a minute and a half, because I'm just like, I wonder who this is going to be. And we were talking about it. We were like, oh, is this going to be Maz Kanata or Hondo Onaka? And then he said she, and we were like, oh, maybe it's Maz Kanata. And it's like, no, it's just a new person. I'm like, oh, okay. And it wasn't bad. Like that's not a bad thing at all. But I don't know. It's Star Wars. Like people are expecting cameos. Just rip that Band-Aid off.
I disagree. I don't think that's a fault. And I thought that was a fun, not quite a misdirect, but it was just a fun part that you thought it was going to be someone, then it wasn't. So it was just a new person. I liked that. I liked that they presented it that way.
Can you imagine though if like the episode ended and they're like, we need a smuggler, and then it ends like on a zoom in on Jude Law, and he's like, I think I know a guy, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be Han Solo or something like that. Would make sense. And then the next episode, it's just a new character. It's like,
I would. If it was at the end of the episode like that, yeah, that would super tick me off. This was much better, because like I said, it was only like a minute and a half at most that they were talking about it.
Can you imagine, though?
And then Kim introduced us to the most significant part of the episode, probably that Captain Silvo or Jadna Nawwood, Jude Law, is also gone by the name of Crimson Jack, which is a deep pull from Star Wars comics from the 70s, the Marvel run. Crimson Jack was a character in that interacted with Han Solo. He was more of an antagonist, I've heard. I have read the comics, but not... I have read those comics, not all of them, but I have read the first 20 or so with Crimson Jack. Max, you recognize the name, and I did not. But that's a cool Legends pull.
Yeah, and so I started looking it up afterwards because as soon as they said it, I was like, Crimson Jack, that sounds familiar. I feel like I know this person. And sure enough, we looked it up. The problem that I have, so I'm on Wikipedia right now, right? And it has information on Crimson Jack. It says Crimson Jack was a human male pirate who, and this is addressing him during the Halcyon Legacy comic series, right? Which took place during the Resistance era. So it says, who during the First Order Resistance War attempted to claim a bounty from the First Order after discovering someone on board the Halcyon had sent a transmission to the Resistance. While threatening the captain over a hologram transmission, Jack stated that the First Order would pay him well to turn over the individual responsible. And then it just says, the name Crimson Jack was also used by a different pirate almost 30 years earlier. And I'm like, now how do you know that? How are you going to claim that this is a different pirate by the exact same name? And I don't think it's wrong because I'm starting to like overthink it now. And I'm like, okay, Jude Law is like 51 years old and he apparently plays someone his age in the show. So he's probably 51. He's human. So if it's the same pirate, he's going to be like 81 years old, roughly. And in the comics, it was definitely a younger guy. And he's also a redhead with a big red beard. So I'm like, I guess it is somebody else, maybe. But I don't know. I don't like that it just like assumes that, though. I feel like this could very definitely be like the same person or something. But I don't know. I don't like Wikipedia making these assumptions. But yeah, and then it goes on and it kind of just restates exactly what you said, Luke. Crimson Jack made his first canon appearance in the first issue of the Halcyon Legacy, written by Ethan Sachs, published by Marvel Comics in 2022. And in Star Wars Legends continuity, he debuted in the 7th issue of the original Marvel Star Wars series, written by Roy Thomas and Howard Chaykin, which the 7th issue was actually the very first issue in the comic series that didn't follow the movies, because issues 1 through 6 were just a retelling of A New Hope.
Yeah, and that...
so he was like one of the very first characters introduced, which is interesting.
I think it's definitely a different character. It's interesting, because this could very well decanonize that Halcyon Legacy comic, which was technically canon this afternoon. But
they also decanonized the Halcyon at was it Orlando, wherever it was.
Does that not look exactly like Crimson Jack, though? This is Jude Law.
Yeah, it does. How did he? Why did he have that?
Where'd you find
shaved?
him with a Fu Manchu? Yeah,
it's for a movie. I forget what it's called. It's
Star Wars Halcyon.
That is it. Yeah,
the movie. They tore down they tore down the hotel, and the comic was not good, but they're gonna make a movie based off of it.
That seems like something Star Wars would do.
I feel like this has to be decanonizing the Halcyon Legacy comic. I think this is, but I
it's
don't
just
know.
like a reference to like deep fans or something that they're just gonna end up kind of re-going. Don Hemingway is what the movie's called. But
it was already a reference to deep fans in the Halcyon comic Legacy, and now this is a separate reference to deep fans that cannot coexist with the first one. Like, it's possible that there are two different people named Crimson Jack, maybe, but no. Like,
that's like
that
if
doesn't make sense.
Just like another presidential candidate was Barack Obama. It's like you gotta change your name. You can't have two in the pantheon.
You're gonna have to really lean into the Barry aspect of it. I could see it going either way. I think given that the hotel failed and they closed up shop, and like I said, the Halcyon Legacy comic book was just a tie-in to the hotel, that I can definitely see them being like, okay, like this was kind of a cool name drop, but that kind of failed, so we're just gonna reuse it for this show, because I think it's clearly a cameo or a homage, Easter egg, whatever you want to call it, that Lucasfilm wants to use. And I think this is obviously doing it a lot better than the comic.
It is, and we've talked about almost the exact same thing with K2SO being introduced in Andor Season 2, that there's a comic that tells that story, and the comic is lesser known, it's not very well liked in the fandom, and it's a minor story, and Andor season 2 could tell it in a better, more satisfying way to a larger audience. But that is a massive story thing in Andor's life. This is just a guy named Crimson Jack. Like, this isn't a thing that you had to overwrite another canon thing to have it in here. Like, why you barely had to do it for the Halcyon Legacy 2 years ago. You certainly don't have to undo that now to do it again here. Like, it's still just as not impactful. Like, it's if you're a massive fan of this 70s the Star Wars Marvel Star Wars run, and you hear this character named Crimson Jack, it's like, oh, that's the same name, but it's not really the same character, probably. Like, it's at this point just the name that's being recycled. Like, he's not going to have the same history with Han Solo. I mean, he dies in that comic in between episodes 4 and 5, so it's not the same character. I don't know. I don't like it. I also don't like how this name is seemingly, like, getting more, I don't know if it's just getting more attention from us because it's a poll from another source like that, or if the show actually presented it that way. Like, I wonder if I show my wife the show and she, doesn't know anything about the comics or the old comics, if she'll think that Crimson Jack is his actual true name. Because, like, so far we're just presented with 3 names for the guy. We don't know if it's Silvo or John and Awood or Crimson Jack. Like, it could very well be a 4th one or one of those 3 or whatever. Like, we have no reason to think that this name is more authentic than the others. But so it might just be like an alias he used once and he's not Crimson Jack. But even then, it's why. I don't know. I don't like it.
And as Matt and I keep saying, I think he is going to have a 4th name, and his real name is going to be Bob Kenobi, and it's going to be Ben Kenobi's long-lost brother that he referenced all the way back in Kenobi. That was definitely laying the foundation for this moment.
Bob Kenobi, and he's going to get saved by, oh my god, I'm loving this whole thing. Zeb at the end of the show.
Zeb will make an appearance.
What was that guy's name from those Marvel comics that was, like, almost the exact same as Obi-Wan Kenobi? You remember what I'm talking about?
Which Marvel comics?
The same one with Crimson Jack, I don't really remember Crimson Jack, but
in the Halcyon?
It was in the 70s Marvel series.
I'm not gonna know off the top of my head.
I really want to pull it up, but I don't know how to search it other than Obi-Wan almost.
That feels like you're going to get casting rumors or something. We got dead air. Two Googlers going on right now.
So, it's...
How important is it to it? What were you going to say?
It's not important, and we can talk about it some other time.
Scan over.
But his name is like... It's like a... You just switched a couple of the letters in Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like Nobi-Wan Shinobi or something like that. And it's like so directly the exact same. And he's like a Jedi character. I don't know. I don't care for those comics. They're similar to movies. It's old or bad because old, and it's just not my style. But it's a really weird comic. But we can't breeze right past it. It has no actual relevance to Skeleton Crew for sure.
That's like
I hope, assuming that John and Awood is not that character.
It sounds like a 13-year-old.
It's gonna come up and Luke's gonna say, "Son of a bitch!"
I will lose it.
We shouldn't have glossed over it.
You already have to do a lot of editing with this episode because if I listen back and have to listen to all those dumbass takes with the Acolyte that you guys were saying before, I'm going to throw my phone across the room tomorrow. So
let's do another one right now.
Well, if I delete every bad mention of the Acolyte, we're at about 4 minutes, so...
Yeah, unfortunately. The X-Wing pilot was not Carson Teva. Was that a jump scare for everyone else? Like, at this point,
but I'm glad
really
it wasn't.
expecting Carson Teva.
I'm glad it wasn't, though, because it feels like I don't want him to be the thread throughout all of these movies. Like, he's not Agent Coulson. He already is! Like, we don't need an Agent Coulson-type character that no one cares about. Like, if they end up dying, you're like, all right, well, that sucked anyway.
We might not need it, but we already have it. And so, because it's already been established, I was surprised. And then we have the interaction between Jod and the kids when he seemingly starts to start telling the truth. And he says, I'm just like you. I'm lost and I'm alone. I liked that part.
That was great.
I'm intrigued to see more of his character and who his true identity is, or who he is and isn't. We never really talked about his use of the Force and being a Jedi. He kind of confirmed at the end that he never actually said he was a Jedi, but he's definitely using the Force. Like, Fern had that whole sequence, which I loved that. That is preemptively shutting up a bunch of assholes on YouTube that were going to bitch and moan about this. But she said, like, oh, you can fake it with repulsors or magnets or string. I don't think he's faking it. I think he is genuinely using the Force. He may not be a Jedi. Maybe he was for like a day. I don't know. Maybe he follows some other devotion to the Force and understands it in a different way. But I don't think he's using magnets or repulsors. He's doing some really Forcey stuff.
Yeah, I hope he just... It's interesting because he doesn't talk like a Jedi at all. Like, he's very upfront with saying things that usually Jedis don't say. Or he's not very mysterious. So obviously, like you said, not a Jedi. But I'm interested in seeing how he is using the Force and why. I hope he isn't using tricks. Like, we saw that in Kenobi already. And beyond that, like, I hope it's... Dude, there's just so much that would have to be explained. Like, I turned off the... If he's like a magician, like, oh, I turned off the light. I switched this light thing, so if I hit my foot at this pot and this time, the light switched off. And he's talking to KB. Like, that's just too much. Like, I'm interested in like his backstory. Clearly, there's more to it because that's how TV shows work.
The thing that I didn't like was when they asked him about being a Jedi, and he was like, "Well, I never actually said that," because I went back and he absolutely did. Because when they were trying to convince him to go back to get Smee, they said, "You can do it. You're a Jedi, aren't you?" And he looked at her for like 1 second too long and then just said, "Of course." So it's like, well, you just said you're a Jedi, so you're lying.
Well, no, he just said, "Of course," right after.
Yeah,
I think this person is a liar.
No, that still falls into the realm of a technicality and from a certain point of view. He never said.
That's not I thought from a maybe point of view.
I thought maybe in episode 2 he said. He like took off his hood and said, "I'm a Jedi, I'll help you." He didn't say that?
No, he just said, "Can you keep a secret?"
Okay, all right. I'm still on board then. He has not officially declared himself a Jedi.
I didn't like that, but I agree with you, Luke. I think he's definitely using the Force. I think he's Force sensitive. He's just not a Jedi. But let me throw this out you. So there was an interview with Jude Law. This is from TV Line. Jude Law was talking about episode 3, and he said, "And when in said adventure will the kids get confirmation of who/what Jod is, if not a Jedi? In the 5 remaining season 1 episodes," and then this is a quote from Jude Law, "you will understand a lot more about him," Law promises, "and the true nature of the character's seeming Force sensitivity is all revealed." Which again makes it sound like it's not Force sensitivity, but like I can't believe that it's not. I think he's Force sensitive. He's just not a Jedi.
Yeah, I agree. That's where I'm at right now.
But the way he's phrasing this right now is like he wants people to think like maybe he's not using the Force. I don't know.
It's the end of the road.
That's just an actor hamming it up in an interview. I don't put much credence into that. That's the full episode 3 of Skeleton Crew, though. So to swing through some other housekeeping things, Max, you went to Comic-Con this past week. How was that?
Well, real quick, we haven't talked about how Kim just squawks all the time. That was my favorite part.
Well, she's a bird, Matthew.
I know, but it's they could have done it differently, but they did it. She's like, "No!" Like every time she goes anywhere, I want more of that.
Yeah, I'm pro squawk as well.
Yeah, that's all.
Who plays Kim? I want it to be Dee Reynolds from It's Always Sunny.
That'd be really funny.
That'd be so stupid.
But yeah, I went to GalaxyCon over the weekend. It was a lot of fun. Wanted to bring our audience up to a bunch of things because I know they're curious about the ongoing saga between this podcast and our favorite Star Wars author, John Jackson Miller. So I'm happy to say that I met him again, talked to him for a little while. The man is a saint. He is just an absolute prince. Every time I talk to him, he is so nice. He definitely remembered us because I told him that we tried reaching out to him on Instagram, and he said like, "Oh yeah, really? No, I know. I left you on red after." He didn't say your name, Matt. He just said that asshole refused to take my poster. So I don't know if he does know your name or not, but he was definitely upset about that, even 1 year later. No, he didn't say that. But I was talking to him for a while. He signed my book, which was really nice. And I talked to him about, and I'm not just saying this, Matt, you would be really interested in this. John Jackson Miller's most recent book is a Batman book, and it's a novel that's actually a tie-in. Yeah,
sorry, you tell it.
well, it's a tie-in to the 1989 Batman film, the Tim Burton one, and he said it takes place in between the 1989 Batman and Batman Returns, and we were kind of talking about that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Was it kind of weird trying to like get into Tim Burton's head and universe because, you know, he's kind of an eccentric creator? And he said, believe it or not, this wasn't my first time doing a tie-in to a Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito project. I was like, what? Back, pop quiz. Do you know of another one?
Of a Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito project? Not
and
Mr.
Tim Burton?
And
Yeah.
Tim Burton? Well, it's not Big Fish. It's not
The
Tilda.
Jack Skellington one. That's my guess.
No, Michael Keaton's not in that. I know, oh, man, this is going to really
Is
bug
Danny
me.
DeVito?
It is going to bug you, but I was sure you're not going to get
Max
it
is
because
about
it was
to
a
tell
weird
you.
one. It
What
was
is it?
It was the 2019 live action Dumbo movie.
Oh, I
Oh,
knew
yeah.
that.
And apparently he does a lot of tie-in novels for Disney projects too, because he also did one for the live action, quote unquote, live action Lion King when they did that one too. So I just thought that was crazy that this guy has written a tie-in novel to multiple Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito universes. But
The trifecta.
anyway, so that was crazy. Matt, you'll appreciate this. I also met Thomas Lennon, who was also really awesome. He's the actor who plays Lieutenant Dangle in Reno 911. He has the really short booty shorts and the leather boots. And I almost
so
bumped
cool.
into him. I was just like walking around the celebrity like area, and I just turned and he was like right next to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Thomas Lennon. And I was like, is that Thomas Lennon? Like he was in full costume. He was wearing the Reno 911 getup and everything. He had the mustache.
was
and
he
I was
a
like, is this just
cosplayer?
an impersonator? I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, is this just a cosplayer? And then he walked behind his table with like his like agent or handler or whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, it actually is him. So he was just like out walking around and just like giving people fist
That's
bumps and
hilarious.
everything. So I gave him a fist bump, and I said, new boot goofing, and without missing a beat, he said, genuine ostrich, 100%.
That's
And I thought that was so awesome. But he was really cool. But definitely the highlight of the whole thing was I got to meet the man himself, Hayden Christensen, which I was super excited about. I got an autograph for him. He signed my 2015 Darth Vader issue 1, which was super
Prove it.
cool. It's in the other room. Would have to go grab it.
Boo.
But it's true.
Prove it to
I
the
have it. I got
podcast
this.
listeners.
I got the signature. But he was super nice. The line was super long, unfortunately, because he was like the big name at the convention. So unfortunately, he like really couldn't spend like any time with the fans or anything like that. So I knew I had to be in there, you know, in and out. Didn't really know what to say, but boy, did I blow it. So
oh no, I thought you were.
I was all in my head. I was all messed up because earlier that morning I was watching Mickey Mouse with the girls, and my wife said something about how like people always think it's strange that Pluto and Goofy, like Pluto doesn't talk but Goofy does, even though they're both dogs. And she was like, that's not really that weird though, because Goofy's a cow. And I was like, Goofy's not a cow, Goofy's a dog. And she's like, no, Goofy's a cow. And then it came back up when I was in line again. So then when I saw Hayden, I asked him if he thought Goofy was a cow or a dog, to which he turned to his agent and said, remind me to charge more for autographs next time. So it could have gone better, but he was still super nice about it.
That didn't happen, right?
There's no way that happened.
No.
That is very funny though.
No,
Goofy's a dog.
I thought so too. That part of the story is real. Lauren said that, and that messed me up, and I just never Googled it since. I'm fairly certain he's a dog. But
Me too.
no,
Don't
he was
Google
super
it.
nice. The people in front of me said that they really liked him in Shattered Glass, and
Yeah,
he
it's a great
seemed like
movie.
super appreciative about that. Like he genuinely like was happy to hear that. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. But I wanted to tell him that I really liked him in Jumper, but I was like,
Jumper,
well,
yeah.
I can't follow that up immediately. Otherwise, he just thinks I'm bandwagoning at this point. So
Yep.
then I was like, hey, thanks for doing this. The fans love you. Big fan, you know, that type of stuff. But that was about it, because they were trying to keep that line moving as fast as humanly possible, because the Columbus Convention Center is quite large, and there was a line that was literally like wrapping around the entire outside of the building. It was crazy.
Well, Star Wars is alive and well, you know. Or
think
the
about
Shattered
that
Glass
scene-
friends.
I think about that scene in Jumper. I know it's not Star Wars, but it's got Hayden Christensen and Sam Jackson in this scene, so I'm going to talk about it anyway. Sam Jackson is trying to find Hayden Christensen for being a jumper, and he gets away, because of course he does. He can teleport to anywhere in the world that he's seen or been to. And then Sam Jackson's like in his house, and he's like, all right, he got away, but we have his jump sites. And then it pans over to a wall that has like 100 pictures of different places in the world. I'm like, no, this is not helpful. This is just all of the places in the world that he can be. You already knew he could be anywhere.
That's really funny.
That's funny.
I know exactly
That movie
the
is
scene.
wacky and silly anyway, so it's not like that's that big of a deal, but that always bothered me.
Were you guys more Jumper or Push fans? Because I feel like those came out right around the same time, and they both had awesome powers.
Yeah,
Jumper.
they did. Definitely Jumper.
Yeah, me too. Push was cool too, though.
That was with
The
Chris
other
Evans,
news,
right?
Yeah.
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 The other news from this week, the return of Rada the Hutt, the guy from The Bear. Matt, what's his name? We have to talk about this.
Jeremy Allen White, who's also playing Bruce Springsteen in the
Jeremy
new
Allen
biopic.
White, a famous actor, like not just famous, but like
Emmy-winning.
a quality actor, like an
Super
actor
big
that,
right now. I mean, he is in the height of it. Yeah.
He was confirmed to be in the Mandalorian Grogu movie, which is surprising, but he is going to be playing Jabba the Hutt's son, Rada the Hutt, which is unbelievable. Like Matt sent us this article, and it's from Deadline, which is a reputable source, and I was 100% certain that this was an AI generated article that Matt fell for on Facebook, and then I did my own research. Several other outlets were reporting on it as well, and I'm still 50-50 on whether or not this is actual news. That is so unbelievable.
I was going to joke about this, but it also is true, is that he did just get divorced. So I don't know if he needs the money or something. He doesn't need the money. I know.
Oh, that's sad. But why is this a role at all that requires like a major name and an announcement? This is not a character that I was foreseeing being in the movie at all, let alone
guess he's
being
gonna
like
be
a
the
big name
villain.
attraction to it. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. I couldn't tell you who voiced Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, or in anything else for that matter. And I feel like it's probably nobody. Like, it's probably just some random voice actor. And I feel like that's probably what they needed here. Why did they get Jeremy Allen White? That's
This
Right,
has got to
so-
be the main villain, right? Like
The implication is that Rada speaks basic, that he will talk at least, right? I mean, we've had Hutts that can talk. Zero the Hutt in the Clone Wars could talk. I don't know
yeah, but when
why
they
some
speak
can talk.
Huttese, it sounds so much better though. Like the Hutts in the Book of Boba Fett were fantastic.
Yeah, they were. That's not to say that a Hutt that speaks basic can't work.
I heard he's going to do like the Benedict Cumberbatch mocap suit. So he's getting a bunch of weight and just going to sit.
And he's just gonna lay on his side. There's actually no movement.
Not to mention Rada the Hutt is a returning character from canon. He was in the Clone Wars animated movie in 2008 as a baby. He was an infant, and Anakin and Ahsoka had to return him to Jabba the Hutt. And so now this is canonically about 30 years after that. Like, it was the start of the Clone Wars to now the Mandoverse era. So yeah, about 30 years. That is grown age for a human. I don't know what that is for a Hutt. They live a long time. I mean, Yoda species live a long time, and Grogu is still a baby at 50. I don't think they would cast Jeremy Allen White to play a Hutt child, but I don't know anything anymore. Nothing's off the table, I feel like.
I think I texted you guys this and said I don't understand or something. Like it doesn't make any sense. Even if he's the main villain, it's weird. I cannot see him being like, I'm gonna really do something different with this role. Like, he's kind of got like that Boston, Chicago-y accent anyway, so that doesn't make any sense to me.
Does he have it? The only thing I've ever seen with him is the Bear, so I didn't know if that was just for that show.
The Bear, Shameless. Like, I feel like he's kind of got this
Shameless,
like New York, Brooklyn.
Didn't he have that same
tough
accent
guy.
in Shameless?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of got this like tough guy kind of accent a little bit. His voice.
I mean, have you seen like interviews with him outside of those shows? Like, does he talk like that IRL?
Yeah, I worked on The Bear season 1 actually.
You worked on it?
We're one of my favorite projects of all time. Yeah, not my favorite
That's
project
cool.
of all time.
Did you meet him?
No, I was in Ohio at that time as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And also, I'm like, do they just have so much cash to blow that they're just like, we're gonna cast the most popular actors in every single role, minor or otherwise?
No, they don't.
No, everything
They have
that
been
comes
bleeding
out,
money like a stuck pig for several years.
it's a major problem. Why are they wasting this? He is such a big name to get for something like this. If you just told me that Jeremy Allen White is joining the Star Wars universe, I'd be like, that's going to be amazing. I love him.
Yes,
This just seems like such a waste of talent.
It does, and especially like you said, I would like him to join Star Wars in a different facet because he is a quality actor. Can you imagine also if there was the news that they're like, oh, Jeremy Allen White is playing Rod of the Hutt? Not a coincidence at all, but your Disney subscription price is going up to $50 a month now.
That would work. I would have a lot more to say about Jeremy Allen White as Rod of the Hutt still. I mean, that's always surprised me in the industry in general when they get big names to star in voice-only roles. I always feel like, why, you know? So it's a move that's consistently been made. It's not like this is the first time, but I don't know. I am very intrigued for Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm a lot more excited for it now than I was to see a condensed and slightly bigger version of Mandalorian Season 4 in a theater like I was a week ago.
Fingers crossed for more Lizzo and Jack Black.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, sorry, Christopher Lloyd. That's who we want to see. Like, does she ever forgive him?
I don't know if I would say I'm more intrigued. I'm just more confused. Like, I guess I want to see it more now, but not because I'm excited. I'm just like, all right,
that's
what's
intrigue.
Going on here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's working. They got you on the fishing line.
I don't like this.
They're dangling that dollar in front of you. Come on, idiot. You want to see the big guy from the Bear be a Hutt?
Yeah. All right. Anyway, does anyone have any force for thought?
Yeah, I do. I was watching Star Wars, A New Hope, Matt's favorite movie, the most underrated movie according to him. And
you're on for me today.
The line, Luke, if your uncle gets a translator droid, make sure it speaks Bocce. And he says, it doesn't look like it's much of a choice, but I'll remind him. And then they meet C-3PO, fluent in over 6 million forms of communication, very well versed in Bocce, and Owen confirms. Is C-3PO a very, very good translator droid to be fluent in over 6 million forms of communication? Because it feels like if you're getting a communicator droid and Bocce is a legitimate language, that should be assumed that every communicator droid can speak Bocce. I would be livid if I got a droid that considers itself a translator and it came home and I asked it to translate Bocce and it told me it couldn't. I would beat it with a baseball bat. That would be unacceptable to me.
Well, you know, we do know now that there are some languages that are forbidden for these droids to know.
Yeah.
You think that's it? You think Bocce is a quasi-forbidden language?
Maybe Uncle Owen was dabbling in the dark arts of the Sith. just wait for the next Star Wars spin-off movie. They're going to go all into it.
Serves them right to get burnt.
That's all we have for you guys today, though. Let us know what you thought of Skeleton Crew Episode 3, and we'll see you next week for Episode 4. Should be a good one. Thanks for listening.
See you, Sammy.